So, what happened? While I was working in the call center, I kept looking for jobs. I went to a recruiter. The recruiter asked me some initial questions, and apparently I didn't do too good because he sent me home. And he was like, "Hey, if you're a developer and you're a programmer, where's your portfolio?" And at the time, I had a website. It just wasn't geared towards the stuff I was doing. And so I said, you know what? I appreciate the information. Give me a few minutes and I'll get back to you. So what I did was I went home and I updated my website to look like a portfolio. And then I called the guy back and said, hey, um, I know I didn't have it, an hour or two ago when I saw you, but can most people put a website together for you and update it in a couple hours? I said, I want you to take a look at my website. Tell me what you think. He looked at it, called me right back, and said, hey, I need you to come back in. We got to talk to you. And we did. And there was this opportunity. At the time, I didn't know what the details were, but there was an opportunity out of Massachusetts for a healthcare application that was, it was a microbiology lab application that was used in hospitals. Okay, great. Sounds good. What do you want me to do? They wanted me to technical write. So I was brought in to document the development life cycle and how they were doing their job. And so, I don't know, first 30 days, I was sitting with 7, 8, there were 9 of us in the, small little boiler room. Hey, what are you doing today? Okay, great. Where are you getting where are these requests coming from? How are you getting your work? Where does it go when you're done? Et cetera, et cetera. And, I went around to everybody in the room and, once I was done, it was clear we didn't have a technical approach. And so what I did was literally wrote out on paper what our next steps were. I drew it out. I showed everybody. We would have continually updating meetings. This is what I'm doing. This is what we're doing. We standardized the CI/CD pipeline for them. Standardized services. We were able to move everything up to the cloud so that all of us as a team were, sitting side by side and next to each other instead of being dependent on somebody giving me a task, somebody checking my work, somebody answering my question. We were no longer dependent on someone else to do something. We were all now had the ability to, get in and do our own stuff without without the bottlenecks and all that other fun stuff that we're all dealing with. So, that was like my first 3 to 6 months. I spent documenting the process and procedures. I spent updating and rewriting new procedures, and then building out the infrastructure that we were going to use going forward. We made the migration into a VPS. I think in the time we might have used Emotion Hosting or Rackspace. Rackspace sounds right. But it wasn't a big box AWS. AWS had so many bad reviews at the time. Cloud was just so immature. We just chose one that had a good reputation. I believe it was Rackspace at this point. Yeah, I'm certain at this point it was Rackspace. We ended up changing to InMotion Hosting, and then we got to AWS eventually. But that's only why I'm confused on the details. 12 years starts to wave in and out. So that was my initial experience with Hunet, and that's how I got to Hunet. I ended up back to the recruiter story. He called me back and said, "Hey, I need you to, I want you to come back over. We want to talk to you. I have this job opportunity, but it's going to be different. I'm going to interview you to a video camera, and we're going to send it off to the hiring manager." So I did. He asked me every question they could think of, and I offered I offered excuse me I answered honestly. I didn't have the luxury of knowing everything, and that was just the truth at the time. I did not have the luxury of knowing everything. I had experience. I had built new infrastructure, uh, ran cables through the walls, through conduits, terminated the ends, tested the cash registers, the machines, the security cameras, made sure all the data was going back to the brain at the headquarters. Made sure we were able to get in and out, made sure that the drive-through monitors were working, bump bars, everything that has to do and everything that goes into the restaurant technology-wise, we're responsible for, supporting. So I got a pretty good crash course right there. The mystique was starting to wear off, I'll say. Up until then, some of my first experiences were really horrible. Guys who just steamrolled me, trying to tell me, "Oh, well, no, you don't know what you're talking about. What we're doing is different. It's not the same. We're using different technology," just trying to run me around in circles. And that's typically because I didn't know what I was talking about. And it wasn't long after that I was like, you know what? This is not happening anymore. I'm not going to let people run me around in circles just because I didn't know what I was talking about. So what I did was I ended up writing, it's called a mind map, but I ended up putting my thoughts out into a map, which I'm going to show you eventually. It won't be this episode, but it'll be, well, it will probably be the next episode because I use it for everything that I do, from sysadmin to DevOps. So again, this was a very important tool to me, and it goes back to my school days when I learned from the Department of Defense, knowing your product inside out. I had taken that every step of the way, documenting, learning the product, learning it inside and out, and becoming that go-to dependable person where everybody in the room had a question, they were looking to me for an answer. And that's always been the case. It's just always been the case. And I think it's only because of the nature of what I do. I don't have the confidence to just walk in and spit fire and free flow. So I document, write it down, and that burns it into my brain. I can remember my wife telling me one time that in my sleep, I was giving support commands. Press F2 and F4 at the same time. Okay, now press, and I would continue down my own checklists in my own sleep. So you could tell um, how committed I was to learning a process and being that person to be dependent on. A little bit of a side note, or a little bit of a roundabout, but that gets me to this job where I'm at today. I've been with them for 12 years. 12 years. Well, what do we do in 12 years? After I finished the documentation and set up the infrastructure, the CI/CD pipeline, that was when the work began.